Welcome to the third episode of Rena's Heartwork. Today I will be reading two poems. First, Sudden Silence, which is a poem about when I lost my hearing at 2 years old and some of the things that it led up to. This poem was written with the help of my youngest part, and I have no memories connected to it. I only know the poem itself. I will delve into a little bit based on what the poem tells us. And then I will read I See, which is a poem about when I got my first hearing aid and subsequent hearing aids and the difference they made in my life. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Sudden Silence. Too young to know or understand. Me pay attention, me listen, me good girl. Unable to tell there was a problem. Gotta watch, look, gotta pay attention. Old mom don't want me cause me not pay attention. Gotta pay attention so new mom still want me. No one knew she was deaf. Hide here, he not see you here. New mom not pay attention, dad hurt her. Gotta hide, be smaller, no want him to see me. Look. They not talk if you no look. Gotta pay attention, gotta listen. No one want new mom leave. Gotta pay attention. So much had changed all at once. She was too young to know what was wrong. Me be good, me listen. Why they mad? They not talk when me not look. Look, gotta pay attention. Her speech had developed before her hearing was lost. How were they to know she relied on lip reading when she didn't know herself? Look, gotta pay attention. Old mom left. No want new mom leave. Pay attention. Look, gotta listen. She didn't know it wasn't her fault. She didn't know her mom didn't leave and was searching for her. Run, hide, gotta be smaller. New mom not pay attention. Dad hurt her. Hide. Don't want him to hurt me. She didn't understand what was going on. She didn't know it wasn't her fault. Reading that poem is very difficult. Even writing it was very odd for me. It was the first time that particular part shared any of its memories with me. So I was completely caught off guard. I was on my way to work when it hit me. And luckily, I usually get to work very early, so I had time to compose myself and get through the day. Was not easy. That's to say the least. As soon as I did make it home, I wrote it all out. This just came out in one big rush, and it was unbelievable. I still have no memories of that time, and reading the poem now does bring up emotion, and just even the thought about what was going on in my 2-year-old mind is unbelievable. When I was 2, I got an ear infection that was bad enough that it burst both my eardrums. The doctors, at least by what my mom says, grafted skin to fix my eardrums. And with what was going on at that time, my parents were divorced, and they had been for a year or so by this time. And I've had mixed stories on exactly how it happened, but my dad got custody. My stepmom says my dad had custody of us when she met him. And my dad says he took us to Arizona because the dry climate would be good for my ears. However, not once did he take me to the doctor to have my ears checked. And by what I was told, my mom didn't know that my dad took us to Arizona. So, in various different stories, the most I can gather is somehow somebody at the school recognized my older brother, and so they hid us 3 older kids in a closet at the school while they called the cops on my dad. And we were then returned to my mom in Ohio. I don't know how, as my last episode told of the events of me meeting my mom is my first memory. So I'm not real sure about this whole time period. I mean, I was young, obviously. But to have my hearing gone to such an extent at the same time that my mom was no longer in my life, as any child, I assumed I had done something wrong. I mean, not only did I think that my mom just didn't want me, but I also believed that people stopped talking to me. I mean, I couldn't hear them anymore. I'm getting in trouble for not paying attention and for daydreaming, and I don't understand why. My stepmom once told me that I wasn't deaf when they had me in Arizona, and then there was a look on her face and she goes, "Unless you were a lip reader." And I know I was a lip reader. I mean, my whole description of my kindergarten teacher is the chipped tooth that he had and his red mustache. So I was obviously very focused on his mouth. I can't imagine everything that was going through my head. You know, I know my mom said when she got us back and got things settled, and school was out for the year, so during summer break she took me to the ear doctor again, and he looks at her and says, "Watch this," and he stood in front of me and talked to me like you would any 5-year-old. Then he walked behind me and dropped a metal tray with metal instruments on it, and I didn't budge. My mom said she just looked at him. He's like, "She's deaf." So my mom said, "Well, why didn't she tell us?" And the doctor says, "Who told her?" Hearing loss is one of the most difficult things to catch in a child, especially if they're hearing sometimes or they're hearing in one ear, because they respond to sound sometimes. The doctor then did surgery to find out what was going on with my ears and found that the bones had been pushed out of place, and he just set them like they're supposed to be and crossed his fingers. So the first thing I remember hearing is the doctor yelling, because it felt like yelling to me in my ear, "Dynamite!" Now my ear doctor's name was Dr. Chung. So yes, he had an accent. And my mom was crying because she was happy that it worked. And I was scared because the doctor's yelling and my mom is crying, and I don't understand why. my hearing was better. And there will be more posts about that. But to realize the level that it could be hard to diagnose a hearing loss, all this happened by the time I was 5 years old. And as an adult, I started giving presentations at schools about disability awareness and hearing loss. And I went and talked to my daughter's 5th grade class. And at the time, I only had one hearing aid. So I pointed out how I only hear things from one side. Even though I got a little hearing in both ears, if you only have one hearing aid, it's going to make sounds on that side louder. So I respond always to the one side. A few weeks later, the teacher came up to me and told me she had this one student who seemed very polite, well-behaved, eager to please, eager to help, but other times just ignored her. And after I explained my hearing loss and what it was like to have one hearing aid, she requested this child's hearing be tested. And they found out that she was deaf in one ear. Nobody knows if she was born this way or if it happened later or what happened, but they didn't catch it until she was in 5th grade. That's the average 10 and 11-year-old is in 5th grade. And this little girl went through all that time not hearing half of what was being said and probably getting in trouble for not responding. So that is definitely something that people really need to think about instead of always assuming that children are not paying attention and are daydreaming. There is a chance that they just cannot hear. So this following poem will describe more of once I got hearing aids, and then I will go back into the details of it and explain more. But yeah, hearing loss can be a disability that is very easily overlooked and really needs people to pay attention to kids that are not responding to sounds. Even if they are half the time, then look into why they're not the other half. So here is the poem titled, I See. We'll be right back right after this short break. Please stay tuned. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They also have music clips you can use, so there's a lot of tools right there at your fingertips, free of charge. They will also distribute your podcast for you, so you'll be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast without a minimum number of listeners. So everything you need in one simple place to make your podcast. All you have to do is download your free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. I mean, how hard is that? It's a free Anchor, that's ANCHOR, a free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm to get started. I see the birds swoop and dip, the breeze dancing in the trees, two lovers whispering, so sweet. Children laugh and play, flags flapping and snapping. I have seen this many times, but now I hear birds singing a sweet song, leaves rustling, enjoying the breeze. Your whispers that I didn't know were there, laughter and yells as the children play. I have always enjoyed the beauty before my eyes. Now I enjoy the beauty for my ears. Finding out that I could hear conversations behind me explained a lot, but finding out leaves made noise all year round really surprised me, because I've only ever heard them in the autumn when they're dry and brittle. And it still blows my mind at all the noise in the world that I had not heard my whole childhood. At my first hearing aid was a simple one, $800, so not a fancy one or even a very strong one, I was to find out. But I found out that rain made noise on the windshield all the time, not just during a storm. That even a little sprinkling will make noise on a windshield. Or that you could hear the children giggle from a distance, not just when you're close to them. The sound of birds, now that one blew my mind. Everybody always said that birds went chirp, chirp, and how much they enjoyed the sounds of birds. Now, at 24 was when I found out you could hear birds on a tree outside of a window when the window was closed. I was in my 30s before I found out how many different sounds birds made, because I was so limited in my hearing up until then that I didn't even understand what I was missing. Of course, some of those birds are very annoying. Not all birds have a beautiful sound, but I sure do enjoy being able to tell the differences in the sounds of birds. There are so many sounds in the world that even after I got yet another hearing aid in my 40s, there were new sounds once again. There were songs that all of a sudden there was this sound I'd never noticed before, and I was like, what the heck? They just destroyed this song. Over time I adjusted and probably did as other people and filtered songs a little better. But it was so unbelievable that these high-pitched sounds that I never knew were there are suddenly in a song that I had been listening to for years. Or that crosswalks can have sounds that are just utterly obnoxious, but everybody else just accepts them. Or finding out that you could hear water boiling from another room. I didn't even know boiling water made a sound, and now I find out you can actually hear it from a distance. Or people that are in another room are talking, and you can tell when there's different people talking. It's not just a low murmur that you can't distinguish one voice from the other, but you can literally tell one voice from the other. And now it was kind of funny when I got a hearing aid in my 40s, which is the best hearing aid I had up to date. My employer commented on how much better my customer service skills had gotten. Well, yeah, because up until that point, I didn't hear people greet me from a distance. I could be setting up, I was a school photographer at the time, and I could be setting up my equipment and be up on a ladder to set something up, and if somebody walked by and said something, I wouldn't necessarily hear them. But with the newer hearing aid, all of a sudden I could hear them and respond without having to climb down and go find out what they said. It blew my mind. Every day, it's new sounds. Every day, there's something that I didn't know existed in the world of sounds. Now, many times, I feel bad for everybody that's always heard all of this noise that surrounds us. But other times I find that sounds are just absolutely beautiful. No, I am grateful that I can turn off my hearing aid and have a quiet evening, sleep all night, because not a lot of sounds wake me up. If thunder wakes me up, it's loud enough to wake up the whole neighborhood, quite literally, because I don't hear it very often. It's utterly and completely mind-blowing to me on how many sounds I never heard, and to know that there are so many children out there that don't hear those sounds and nobody realizes it. I was in college when I had a new hearing aid one time, and it was time for a test, and I couldn't concentrate because of all the noise everybody was making, writing on their paper, flipping papers, and I had to turn my hearing aids off so I could focus to take the test. Now, over the semester, I did adjust and adapt to the sounds, and it wasn't always a problem. It's no longer a problem. But that tells you just how many sounds that everybody's naturally filtering out. And I had to learn to filter. It's also interesting because my mind does not trust sounds. So once I have a hearing aid for a while, I start struggling to hear again. And it's not really that I didn't hear you, it's that my mind did not process the sounds it heard and needs to confirm what it heard before I can trust it. And people think I'm not paying attention, and it's literally just that it's an auditory processing deficit now. My mind did not learn to process sound from 2 years of age to 24 years of age. And so now it doesn't trust it. So it takes me sometimes a repeat. I find it interesting how many people get frustrated when you ask them to repeat themselves. But it tells you a lot about somebody if they can't handle just repeating themselves because they weren't heard. I do enjoy it when my friends forget that I have trouble hearing and ask me to identify a sound that I didn't even hear. There are still a lot of sounds I don't hear, but I enjoy the sounds I do hear a lot more. First time I could hear a helicopter without seeing one in the sky. The first time I could hear traffic that was over a block away, or hear the traffic at a window that was on the 7th floor. I didn't know sounds traveled that far. Now I have learned that sound travels up, which explains me hearing traffic when I was 7 stories up. Why I could hear voices that were just below my window, but the people that were down there couldn't necessarily hear me. It freaked me out. My kids get a good laugh when I am confused about sounds. My daughter has this unbelievable hearing, so she gets to describe a lot of sounds for me. and explains to me what sounds I'm still not hearing in my apartment, which I'm finding out is a blessing since I can't hear the neighbor's TV, or very seldom can I hear him walking above me or next door. It really surprised me when I told my neighbors that I have hearing loss. Let me know if I'm being loud because I don't necessarily know it. And one told me, oh, it's fine, we watch the same TV shows. So basically she had surround sound because she could hear my TV as well as she could hear her own. I try very hard to be respectful of the hearing world, which probably makes me be quieter than most. But it's interesting how many people of the hearing world have no respect of other people that can hear. Yeah, sounds. That's an interesting thing. Words. I don't know. I just find the whole world of sounds very unique and interesting. And I'm still learning new sounds. And I don't think I'll ever stop. The next time you're driving down the street, listen to your tires on the road, because I found it very interesting that the tires make different sounds on different pavements. And I wonder how many people even acknowledge that different sound as they're driving. Or of the rain hitting your windshield. How many sounds do you block out that I look forward to learning about? How many sounds do adults block out that kids are having to learn to filter? It's something to think about. When your baby is fussy, are there sounds that you're filtering out but they can't filter yet? So go out, listen to the trees, listen to the birds, and enjoy what you have. Because you never know who doesn't have it and who would do anything to have what you have in so many ways. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Rena's Heartwork. Feel free to contact me with any comments, questions, or even suggestions at renasheartwork@gmail.com. That's RENASHEARTWORK@gmail.com. No spaces, no dashes, just letters. This is Rena from Rena's Heartwork. Consistently inconsistent, perfectly imperfect, and always kind.